What would you do if you heard a cry for help in the middle of nowhere? The swamp of Blackthorn Hollow stretched endlessly before the rickety wooden dock. Its waters dark as ink under a veil of dawn fog. Reeds swayed like ghostly fingers, and the air carried a damp chill that clung to the skin. Somewhere deep in the haze, a low, guttural whimper broke the silence. A sound that wasn't quite animal, wasn't quite human. Eli Carter, 38, stood frozen on a small fishing boat, his calloused hands gripping the oars. He was a man carved by loss, once a firefighter, now a recluse living in a sagging cabin at the swamp's edge. His dark eyes, shadowed by grief, scanned the mist. The whimper came again, sharper, desperate, slicing through his morning routine. Something's out there, he thought, heart thudding. Was it a trick of the wind? Or was something dying in the swamp? He hadn't come to Blackthorn Hollow for heroics. 5 years ago, a fire had taken his wife, Lila, and their unborn daughter, leaving Eli to drown his guilt in solitude. But that sound, it tugged at something buried, a spark of the man he used to be. He pushed the oars forward, the boat cutting through the water, chasing a cry that felt like a call from his past. What's waiting in the fog? Have you ever faced something that scared you to your core? The boat glided through the reeds, the whimper growing louder, more ragged. Eli's flashlight beam danced across the swamp, catching glints of water and the twisted roots of cypress trees. Then, in a clearing where the mud was thick and black, he saw it, a dark shape thrashing weakly, half submerged, its fur matted with sludge. Eli's breath caught as he leaned closer, expecting a deer or a raccoon. But the shape was larger, its form canine, with a long snout and ears pinned back in panic. A German shepherd, emaciated and trembling, its paws clawing at the mud that sucked it deeper with every move. Its amber eyes locked onto Eli's, wide with fear but burning with a flicker of defiance. How did the dog get out here? He tied the boat to a root and stepped onto the mud bank, his boots sinking with a wet squelch. The dog let out a low, pained growl, not threatening but pleading. Eli's heart twisted. He knew that look, the same one Lila had given him in the hospital, begging him to save her. Can he save this creature, or will the swamp claim another life? What haunts a hero who couldn't save the ones he loved? Eli crouched near the dog, his hands hovering, unsure. The swamp's chill seeped into his bones, but it was a memory of fire that made him tremble. 5 years ago, he'd run into a burning building, pulling strangers to safety. But he couldn't reach Lila in time. Her scream still echoed in his dreams. The German shepherd's whimpers softened, its head slumping as if giving up. Eli saw its ribs, sharp under its matted fur, and the wounds crisscrossing its flank, scars of a fight it barely survived. "What happened to you, buddy?" he whispered, his voice rough with disuse. The dog's eyes flickered, holding his gaze, as if it knew he was its last hope. Eli's hand shook as he reached for a rope in the boat. He hadn't saved anyone since the fire, hadn't even tried. But this dog, stranded in the middle of nowhere, felt like a test, a chance to prove he wasn't broken beyond repair. Will he risk the mud to save a life, or let his past win? How far would you go for a stranger's cry? Eli tied the rope around a cypress tree, his boots sinking deeper into the mud. The swamp was treacherous. Locals whispered of sinkholes that could swallow a manhole. He glanced at the dog, its breathing shallow, its body sinking inch by inch. Time was running out. "Hey, buddy, hold on," Eli said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. He waded toward the dog, mud pulling at his legs like a living thing. Each step felt like a gamble, the ground shifting beneath him. The dog's eyes never left his, a silent plea that anchored him to the moment. Halfway to the dog, Eli's boot caught, and he stumbled, mud splashing his face. For a moment, panic surged, memories of smoke, of choking heat, of failing. But the dog's weak whimper pulled him back. Can he fight his fears to reach the dog in time? What's in a name that changes everything? Eli reached the dog, his hands sinking into the cold, sticky mud as he knelt beside it. Up close, the German shepherd's condition was worse. Its fur was caked with blood and mud, and a faint whine escaped its throat. Around its neck, a tattered collar glinted, a tag catching the flashlight's beam. Eli wiped the mud away, squinting at the tag. Max. It read, with a faded phone number. Max. The name hit Eli like a punch. His daughter was to be named Maxine after Lila's father. He froze, the swamp fading as memories flooded in. Lila's laugh, her hand on her swollen belly, promising a future they'd never have. Max, huh? Eli whispered, his voice cracking. The dog's ears twitched, as if the name gave it strength. Eli looped the rope around Max's chest, his hand steadying. Is this dog a sign, or just another ghost from his past? Can one man defeat nature's grip? Eli pulled on the rope, his muscles straining as the mud fought back, reluctant to release Max. The dog's body was heavy, its strength gone, but its eyes stayed fixed on Eli, trusting, urging him on. The swamp groaned, bubbles rising as if it were alive, hungry to keep its prize. Eli's arms burned, his boots slipping. He braced against a tree, pulling harder, but the rope slipped, and he felt his knees, mud soaking his jeans. Come on, Max, he grunted, wiping sweat from his brow. The dog let out a weak bark, a spark of fight left in its soul. For a moment, Eli saw himself in Max, trapped, sinking, needing someone to pull him free. He tightened his grip, refusing to let go. Will the swamp win, or can Eli pull Max to safety? What's the moment that changes everything? After 3 agonizing pulls, the mud gave way with a sickening slurp, and Max's body slid forward, half free. Eli's heart leaped, but the dog was still too weak to move on its own. He waded deeper, ignoring the mud sucking at his thighs, and lifted Max's head, cradling it like a child's. You're not giving up on me, are you? Eli said, his voice soft but firm. Max's tongue flicked out, brushing Eli's hand, a small gesture that felt like a promise. The dog's warmth against his palm grounded him, pushing back the ghost of failure. Eli tied the rope tighter and pulled again, his back screaming in protest. The boat rocked as Max's front half landed on the wooden floor, mud dripping like dark tears. Is this the turning point, or is there more danger ahead? Can a fragile life survive the journey? Eli climbed into the boat, his hands trembling as he dragged Max's limp body the rest of the way. The small vessel tilted, water lapping at the sides, threatening to tip. Max lay panting, his amber eyes half closed, but still watching Eli, as if anchoring himself to man's presence. Eli sat beside Max, steadying the boat with one hand, the other resting on the dog's matted fur. We're getting you out of here, buddy, he said, though his voice shook with doubt. The swamp was dark now, the fog thicker, and the journey back to his cabin felt impossibly far. He rowed gently, every stroke careful not to jostle Max. The dog's breathing was uneven, each exhale a faint whine. Eli's chest tightened. Would Max survive the trip? What's waiting at the end of this dark journey? Does home mean safety or just another battle? The cabin's faint outline emerged through the fog, its porch light a beacon in the gloom. Eli's arms ached, but relief washed over him as he tied the boat to the dock. Max lay still, his chest rising and falling faintly, his eyes blinking slowly. Eli slid a plank under Max, using it as a makeshift stretcher to drag him onto the grass. The dog's weight was heavier than expected, a reminder of the life still clinging to him. Eli's cabin, with its peeling paint and creaky porch, had never felt like a home until now. He knelt beside Max, checking the wounds under the porch light. The cuts were deep, some fresh, others scarred. What kind of fight left you like this, Max? Eli wondered, his heart heavy with questions. Who hurt this dog and why? Can a simple act heal invisible wounds? Eli grabbed a hose, adjusting the flow to a gentle stream, and began washing the mud from Max's fur. The water revealed dark, glossy fur beneath, but also the stark outline of ribs and raw wounds. Max flinched but didn't pull away, his eyes locked on Eli's, trusting despite the pain. You've been through hell, haven't you? Eli murmured, his hands careful as he worked. The act felt intimate, like tending to a wound of his own. Each stroke of the hose seemed to wash away not just mud, but a layer of Eli's guilt, his isolation. Max's breathing steadied, his body cleaner but still frail. Eli wrapped him in an old blanket, the same one Lila used to curl up in. Is Max's survival a chance for Eli to start again? What does it mean to share a meal with a stranger? Eli ducked into the cabin, grabbing a slab of raw venison from his fridge. leftovers from a neighbor's hunt. He set it on the grass, watching as Max's nose twitched, catching the scent. The dog struggled his feet, wobbling, then staggered to meat, eating slowly, eyes never leaving Eli. Eli sat cross-legged, watching Max eat, a lump in his throat. "That's it, buddy. Keep fighting," he said softly. The sight stirred memory. Lila cooking dinner, laughing as she fed him a bite of her stew. For the first time in years, Eli felt a flicker of warmth in his chest. Max finished, lying down with a sigh, his gaze steady on Eli. A bond was forming, fragile but real. What secrets does Max carry, and will they change everything? Who do you turn to when hope is fading? Eli pulled his phone from his pocket, its cracked screen glowing in the dark. He dialed a number on Max's tag, but it rang endlessly. No answer. His heart sank. Max's owner was a ghost, just like his past. He switched to the local wildlife rescue, his voice urgent. "I found a German shepherd in the swamp. He's hurt bad. Send someone." The operator promised a team by morning, but Eli's gut twisted. Morning was hours away, and Max's breathing was growing weaker. He sat beside the dog, stroking his damp fur, whispering, "You're not alone, Max. Not anymore." The night deepened, rain tapping the cabin roof. Eli's mind raced. Where had Max come from, and why was he so far from home? Will help arrive in time, or is it already too late? Can you outrun a storm inside and out? The rain grew heavier, thunder rumbling in the distance. Eli carried Max into the cabin, laying him on a rug by the fireplace. The dog's eyes fluttered, his body shivering despite the blanket. Eli stoked the fire, its glow casting shadows that danced like memories. He sat beside Max, his own past creeping in. "I couldn't save her, Max," he said, voice barely audible. "But I'm not losing you." The confession felt like a weight lifting, but the storm outside roared louder, as if challenging his resolve. Max's ears twitched, catching a sound Eli didn't hear. The dogs had lifted, a low growl rumbling in his throat. What's out there in the storm, and why is Max afraid? What's more dangerous than the swamp itself? A sharp knock rattled the cabin door, startling Eli. He glanced at Max, whose growl deepened, hackles rising. The rain pounded outside, masking any other sounds, but Eli's instincts screamed danger. He grabbed a flashlight and cracked the door, peering into the dark. A man stood there, soaked, his face hidden under a hood. "You found my dog," he said, voice low and rough. Eli's grip tightened on the flashlight. The man's eyes were cold and a scar ran down his cheek, a face that didn't match the idea of a worried pet owner. Max whimpered, pressing against Eli's leg, his body tense. Who is this stranger, and what does he want with Max? Can you trust a man who appears in a storm? The stranger stepped forward, water dripping from his jacket. "His name's Max. I've been looking for him," he said, his tone flat, almost rehearsed. Eli blocked the doorway, his heart racing. Something about the man's voice felt wrong, like a lie wrapped in truth. "Look, he's hurt," Eli said, keeping his voice steady. "I called the wildlife rescue. They're coming at dawn." The stranger's eyes narrowed, glancing at Max, who bare his teeth, a low snarl escaping. The dog's fear was palpable, and Eli's got twisted. Max knew this man, and not in a good way. The stranger smirked, stepping back into the rain. "I'll be back," he said, vanishing into the storm. What's the stranger hiding, and what does Max know? How do you protect a life when danger lingers? Eli locked the door, his hands shaking as he checked the windows. Max lay by the fire, his eyes tracking Eli's every move, as if guarding him in return. The storm raged outside, but the real threat was the stranger's words, echoing in Eli's mind. He sat beside Max, running his fingers through the dog's fur. "Who was that, buddy? What did he do to you?" Max's wounds told a story, scars from fights, not accidents. Eli's firefighter instincts kicked in, piecing together a puzzle. Max wasn't a lost pet. He was a runaway. The fire crackled, but Eli couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Will the stranger return before help arrives? What can a dog's gaze reveal? Max's amber eyes held Eli's, steady and knowing, as if trying to speak. Eli leaned closer, noticing a faint tattoo on the dog's inner ear, a number like a brand. His stomach churned. This wasn't a pet. Max was part of something darker, maybe a fighting ring or worse. You escaped, didn't you? Eli whispered, his voice thick with realization. Max's tail gave a weak thump, a confirmation that broke Eli's heart. The dog had fought for his life long before the swamp, and now he was fighting to trust again. Eli's resolve hardened. He'd failed Lila, but he wouldn't fail Max. What's the cost of protecting a life on the run? Can hope survive the longest night? The storm eased as dawn approached, but the wildlife rescue hadn't arrived. Eli paced the cabin, checking his phone. No signal in the swamp's dead zone. Max lay still, his breathing steadier but weak, his eyes following Eli's restless steps. Eli knelt beside him, offering a bowl of water. "You're a fighter, Max," he said, his voice a mix of pride and fear. Max lapped at the water, slow but determined, his trust in Eli growing with every moment. Outside, the swamp was quiet, too quiet. Eli's neck prickled, sensing eyes in the fog. Is help coming? Or is danger closer than ever? Is rescue a savior or a threat? A low rumble broke the silence. A truck engine, growing louder. Eli peered through the window, spotting headlights cutting through the fog. Relief surged, but Max's sudden growl stopped him cold. The dog struggled to his feet, hackles raised, staring at the door. Eli grabbed a kitchen knife, his firefighter instincts flaring. "Stay, Max," he whispered, but the dog pressed against him, protective. The truck stopped, and heavy boots crunched on the gravel. A voice called out, "Carter, you there?" It wasn't a stranger's voice, but Eli's grip on the knife didn't loosen. The door creaked open, revealing a young woman in a wildlife rescue uniform, Sarah, with a vet kit slung over her shoulder. But Max's growls didn't stop. Why is Max still afraid? Can you trust the ones who come to help? Sarah knelt beside Max, her hands gentle but firm as she checked his wounds. "He's been through hell," she said, her voice soft but professional. "Fighting ring. Probably. That tattoo's a marker." Eli's jaw tightened, his suspicions confirmed. Max's eyes flicked between Sarah and Eli, wary but calming under Eli's touch. "He trusts you," Sarah said, glancing at Eli with respect. "That's rare for a dog like this." Eli nodded, his throat tight. Max's trust felt like a lifeline, pulling him from his own darkness. But Sarah's radio crackled, and a man's voice cut through, familiar, cold, like the stranger's. Sarah frowned, silencing the radio. "We need to move him now," she said, her tone urgent. Is Sarah hiding something, or is the danger closer than Eli thinks? How do you outrun a shadow? Sarah explained the plan. Get Max to the wildlife sanctuary 20 miles away, where he'd be safe from whoever was after him. Eli's gut screamed that the stranger was tied to Max's past, maybe a handler from the fighting ring. He glanced at Max, whose eyes were steady, trusting. "I'm coming with you," Eli said, his voice firm. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. They lifted Max onto a stretcher, his body limp but his spirit unbroken. Eli grabbed a backpack, stuffing it with water and a flashlight, his hands steady despite the fear gnawing at him. As they loaded Max into the truck, headlights flashed in the distance, another vehicle moving fast. Is the stranger back, or is it just the swamp playing tricks? Can you escape when the past is chasing you? Sarah gunned the engine, the truck jolting over the muddy road. Max lay in the back, secure but whimpering, his eyes on Eli, who sat beside him, whispering, "We're getting you out, buddy." The headlights behind them grew closer, relentless, cutting through the dawn fog. Eli's heart pounded. "Who's following us?" he demanded. Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. "Could be poachers or worse," she said, her voice tight. "They don't let dogs like Max go." Eli glanced at the side mirror, catching a glimpse of a black SUV. The same Scarface man at the wheel. The truck swerved, tires screeching as Sarah took a sharp turn. Max whined, and Eli's hand found his fur, grounding them both. Can they outrun the danger closing in? What do you do when there's no way out? The swamp road narrowed, flanked by dark water and twisted trees. The SUV gained, its engine roaring like a predator. Eli's mind raced, memories of fire, of running, of failing. He pushed them down, focusing on Max, whose breathing was labored but steady. Sarah's radio crackled again, the stranger's voice clearer now. "You can't keep what's mine." Eli's blood ran cold. He leaned forward, shouting, "Drive faster." Sarah nodded, her jaw set, but the road ended at a rickety bridge, swaying over a churning river. Eli looked back. The SUV was seconds away. Max growled, struggling to stand, as if ready to fight. Will they cross the bridge or face the enemy head-on? What's the price of standing your ground? Sarah slammed the brakes, the truck skidding to a stop at the bridge's edge. "It won't hold us," she said, her voice shaking. Eli glanced at Max, then at the SUV. Now stopped, its driver stepping out, the stranger, scar glinting in the headlights. "Give me the dog," the stranger called, his voice cold as a swamp. Eli stepped out, knife in hand, standing between Max and the man. "He's not yours," Eli said, his voice steady, a fire rekindling inside him. Max barked, weak but fierce, backing Eli up. Sarah grabbed her radio, whispering for backup, but the stranger pulled a gun, his eyes locked on Eli. Can Eli protect Max against a man with nothing to lose? Who wins when hope faces hate? Eli stood firm, the knife a frail defense against the stranger's gun. "Max escaped you," Eli said, his voice low, accusing. "What did you do to him?" The stranger laughed, a hollow sound. "He was my best fighter, worth a fortune." Max growled, his body trembling but defiant, inching closer to Eli. Sarah stepped out, hands raised, trying to de-escalate. "We can work this out," she said, but the stranger's eyes were wild, unyielding. Eli's heart raced. He'd faced flames, but this was different. This was personal. A siren wailed in the distance, faint but growing. The stranger's gun wavered. Is help close enough to save them? Or is this the end? What do you risk for a second chance? The sirens grew louder, and the stranger's face twisted with rage. He lunged toward the truck, aiming for Max, but Eli tackled him, the knife clattering away. They hit the ground, mud splashing, fists flying. Max barked, struggling to help, his loyalty fierce. Sarah grabbed Max, pulling him toward the bridge. "Eli, come on," she shouted. Eli broke free, scrambling to his feet, but the stranger grabbed his ankle, dragging him back. Eli kicked, connecting with the man's jaw, and ran, joining Sarah and Max on the swaying bridge. The bridge creaked, ropes fraying under their weight. The stranger staggered to his feet, gun raised. Can they cross before the bridge collapses? What happens when everything falls apart? The bridge groaned, planks splintering as Eli, Sarah, and Max stumbled across. The stranger fired, the shot echoing, missing but sending splinters flying. Eli held Max's stretcher, his arms burning, his heart pounding with a single thought. Save him. Halfway across, a rope snapped, the bridge tilting wildly. Sarah screamed, grabbing a rail, while Eli clutched Max, the dog's eyes wide but trusting. "We're almost there," Eli gasped, his voice a lifeline. Behind them, the stranger advanced, his steps shaking the bridge. The sirens were close now, lights flashing on the far side. But the bridge buckled, planks falling into the river below. Will they make it, or will the swamp claim them all? Can courage defy the odds? Eli's legs burned, but he pushed forward, Max's weight heavy in his arms. Sarah steadied the stretcher, her face set with determination. The bridge swayed, another rope snapping, but they were steps from solid ground. The stranger's shouts faded, drowned by the roar of the river and the nearing sirens. Eli stumbled onto the bank, collapsing with Max, Sarah beside him. The bridge collapsed behind them, the stranger's figure swallowed by the fog as police trucks screeched to a stop. Officers swarmed, weapons drawn, but the stranger was gone, lost to the swamp. Max licked Eli's hand, his breathing steady, his eyes bright. Eli laughed, tears mixing with mud. Did they escape the danger, or is it still out there? What does it mean to find home? At the wildlife sanctuary, Max thrived, his wounds healing, his spirit reborn. Eli visited daily, watching the German shepherd run through grassy enclosure, named Max's Haven in his honor. The dog's amber eyes still found Eli's, a silent thank you that mended his broken heart. Sarah uncovered the truth. Max had escaped a brutal dogfighting ring, his owner a kingpin now on the run. Eli's courage had saved more than a dog. It had exposed a crime network. He stood taller now, the recluse fading, replaced by a man who'd found purpose. One day, Eli arrived to find Max waiting at the gate, tail wagging. "You're home, buddy," Eli said, kneeling. But a letter in his pocket held a new mystery. What secret did Max's collar hide? What if saving a life changes the world? Eli opened the letter, his hands trembling. It was from Lila's sister, who'd tracked him down after seeing Max's story online. The faded phone number on Max's collar? It was Lila's old number, one Eli hadn't dialed in years. Max belonged to a friend of Lila's, a woman who died trying to shut down the fighting ring. Max wasn't just a runaway. He was a witness, carrying a microchip with evidence that could dismantle the ring for good. Eli handed the chip to the police, his heart full. He'd saved Max, and Max had saved him, giving him a reason to live again. As Eli walked Max through the sanctuary, he smiled, the swamp shadows gone. "You and me, buddy, we're not done yet," he said. "Have you ever saved a life that changed your own? Share your story below.